Welcome to the Atlas Cast for Building Your Business, presented by best-selling author, speaker, and sales and business growth consultant, Archer Atlas. And here's your host, Archer Atlas.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 12 of the Atlas Cast for Building Your Business, hosted by me, Archer Atlas. Very quickly, if you'd like to get show notes, transcripts, and updates on when new shows are released, as well as 2 free gifts, my best-selling book, Build Your Business Without Breaking the Bank, and the audio program Going Up, How to Generate More and Better Leads Quickly and Inexpensively. If you'd like all of that for free, simply go to www.theatlascast.com and subscribe. You'll get it all. The updates, the show notes, the transcripts, and the 2 free gifts. Build Your Business Without Breaking the Bank and Going Up, How to Generate More and Better Leads Quickly and Inexpensively. Just go to www.theatlascast.com and subscribe. All right, this is episode 12 of the Atlas Cast for Building Your Business. We're going to continue where we left off last episode. You know, last episode we went over the top 10 rules for selling on the phone. And these rules actually, many of them, if not all, these apply to not only selling in pretty much any situation you'll be selling, whether that's on the phone or in person, but these rules are also good ones for life and communicating with others. Anyway, that's what we covered last time out, the top 10 rules for selling on the telephone. And as a result, I've got a lot of emails asking for some more examples and asking some questions about these rules. So, that's what we're going to cover this episode. Another quick explanation of the rules and some more examples, which I probably should have done a better job with the first time out. Anyway, here they are. Here are the rules. Rule 1, ABC, always be closing. Rule 2, end down. Rule 3, you're speaking with a peer, your equal. Rule 4, blow off BS objections. Buyers are liars. Rule 5, cut off excuses. Rule 6, use an economy of language. Rule 7, he who speaks first loses. Rule 8, don't repeat them. Rule 9, reneges. Rule 10, GAC and JFDI. So those are the rules. Let's run through them one by one with some examples. All right, 1, ABC, always be closing. This might seem self-explanatory for some, but it's worth covering over and over because most people don't do this, even so-called master salesmen. Always be closing. First off, what does this mean? It means this. You have a goal for every one of your sales interactions. And that's whether you're qualifying, generating leads, setting appointments, or actually trying to get your prospect or client to pull out their wallets and fork over their hard-earned cash for you. So you have a goal for every interaction. You need to be focused on that goal, and everything you say needs to lead your prospect or client toward that goal. So with that, every time you go to stop talking and close your mouth, the last thing out of it better be a quote-unquote close. You better be asking for the order or asking your prospect to take the next step, the action you want them to take. Now, before we get into examples, there's one exception to this rule, and it's still actually within the confines of this rule, but it's a little different and worth mentioning. Sometimes you want to ask your prospect some non-closing questions. Sometimes they're rhetorical. Now, these questions aren't closes per se, but they still are leading the prospect toward taking the action you want them to take. Here's one example of that from one of my broker days. So, I'd have the prospect on the phone, and I'd be talking to him about picking up a small block of shares of, say, Halliburton. And I'd get into the main reason we were buying, and let's say it was because they just sold half their interest in one of their subsidiaries, and rumor had it, they were selling the other half for even more money. So, I'd probably say something along these lines. So follow me on the numbers. You take a very profitable company that does $12 billion a year in revenue, and you inject $1 billion cash into it with the sale of half of their subsidiary. And you inject even more than that billion with the sale of the other half. Now let me ask you, what do you think will happen to the price of the stock? Should go up, right? So I asked a question there, and the last thing out of my mouth wasn't a close. I didn't ask for the order, but I did something that hopefully will bring the prospect a step closer to doing what I want them to do, which is buy the stock. Consequently, the next thing I'd say after I got the prospect to say yes, or it should go up, would be the setup where I explained exactly what I wanted to do, and then I'd ask for the order. Anyway, that's the exception. Let's get into the rule and examples. You want to ask for the order directly before you stop talking, and you want to do this every single time you stop talking. Now, this is easy to do when you ask for the order initially, and even when you're rebutting objections. Where most people make mistakes on this is in answering questions prospects or clients ask. What's your name again? John, my name is Archer Atlas, and there's not a doubt in my mind you should pick up the 100 shares. What's it trading at? It's at 40.47 right now, and I'm telling you, you want to own 100 shares. Wait, what company are you with? John, I'm with Atlas Advisors. Listen to me on this. You're going to want to meet with me for 15 minutes. Anytime a prospect asks you a question, you're presented with an opportunity to close them. So do it. Answer the question. Give them a blurb or reason why they should do as they're told, and then close them. And in fact, those 3 examples I just gave didn't even have blurbs or reasons in them. They were just answers with closes following them. Answer, blurb, close. A, B, C. Always be closing. Okay, so that's what people usually get wrong. They just don't close after answering a question they're asked. Doing it the wrong way looks, or should I say sounds, like this. What's your name again? My name is Archer Atlas. Crickets. What's it trading at? It's at $40.47 right now. Crickets. What firm are you with? I'm with Atlas Advisors. Crickets. Look, when someone asks you a question and you only give them an answer, you're not leading. You're being led. And that's not a position you ever want to be in. You want to be in control at all times. And if you just answer the question and trail off into silence, the conversation can go anywhere from there. More importantly, the conversation is controlled in where it goes by the prospect, not you. You don't want this at all. So be sure to close and ask for the order, whatever that quote-unquote order looks like. All right, that said, let's get into some examples of different ways to ask for that order. Remember, with every communication, you have a goal. And when you're on the phone with a prospect, there are only 3 goals you should ever have in any situation. Let me clarify. There are 3 different goals you can have. Pick one. So those goals are 1, generate a lead. 2, set an appointment. 3, make a sale and get the prospect to open their wallets for you. The third one is the easiest to explain and give an example for. If you want someone to buy something, the best way to do it is to just ask them to buy. So every time you're about to stop talking, make sure you ask the prospect to buy beforehand. Buy the 100 shares. Do the 100 shares. Pick up the 100 shares. Take the 100 shares, etc. Obviously, this doesn't just apply to stocks, but to anything and everything. Whatever it is that you sell, ask for the order and ask the prospect to buy what you have to offer. Okay, setting appointments. This is easy as well. Just ask. Ask the prospect to meet with you and be clear that they will benefit from meeting with you. Make it so that they will, and make it so they will benefit regardless of whether you ever do business with them or not. This makes it easier to sell the appointment. And every time you respond to an objection, every time you're asked a question, every time you say anything, be sure to ask for the appointment. Let's say you ask the prospect to meet with you and they say they're not interested. You have to understand something. I'm talking about a strategy that has netted every company that's used it an average of 20% returns within 60 days. I'm telling you, you want to at least hear about this strategy. When can we meet? Not interested. Can I tell you something? After meeting with me, you'll have a foolproof strategy and tactic your company can use tomorrow that can have a dramatic impact on your bottom line, regardless of whether we work together or not. Believe me, you'll want to take that 15 minutes to meet. What day works best for you? What's the strategy you're talking about? I'll be happy to share that with you in fine detail when we meet. I couldn't possibly do it justice right now in this brief conversation over the phone. Would you have 15 minutes to set aside next week? Actually, the last point is an important one. If you're asking for an appointment or meeting, that's your goal. Stick to it. Don't try to sell over the phone in that case. Sometimes it works. Most times it doesn't. Don't sell what you eventually want to sell. Your only goal for this call is to sell the meeting. All right, last one, generating leads. If you're using the ask approach, like we've been covering in other episodes and is also covered in my best-selling video training course, Get More Customers and Clients Now, which you can get at www.theatlascast.com/offer, OFFER. If you're using the ask approach to generate qualified leads, you want to ask for the order in the form of getting the prospect to accept your offer of value and agree to your request. So every time you stop talking, you want to make those 2 points very clear. So if your ask approach involves you offering a white paper as your offer of value and your request is an open ear the next time you speak, your ask for the order will be some variation of telling the prospect they're going to want to hear what you have to say next time out. Not interested. I understand that, but my last recommendation was ABC. We got in at 9 and the stock shot to 15 in just 30 days. Believe me, you're going to want to hear my next recommendation. Or let's just say that your request involves the prospect attending a webinar. Not interested. I can appreciate that. But the fact is, this webinar is going to cover 7 ways to generate at least 10 referrals this month and every month after. Believe me, you'll want to be on this webinar. All right, we're really burning up time here, and we've only covered the first of the top 10 rules for selling on the phone. Let's get to Rule 2. Rule 2, end down. This one's easy. End every sentence, even questions, as if you were making a definitive, authoritative statement or even a command. Use a tone of voice that not only conveys that you are the authority when it comes to what you're talking about, that you have utmost credibility, and that what you say is the last word on it, but also end with the opposite tone that you would use when asking a question. You know how when you ask a question, your voice and tone goes up? Even if your question isn't a typical question that starts with the 6 W's: who, what, when, where, why, or how. We're talking about Halliburton? See, that didn't start with any of the 6 W's, but still was a question because my tone went up. I could have easily said the exact same words with a different tone and not had it be a question. We're talking about Halliburton. End down, never up, even with questions. Fair enough? Take the 100 shares. When can we meet? You're going to want to hear about it. By the way, the 6 W's, anyone wants to tell you that how doesn't start with W or isn't a W word, tell them to write it down, then look at it in a mirror. It starts with W. All right, make sure you end down. And to incorporate this with the first rule, make sure you end down while asking for the order directly before you stop talking, every time you stop talking. Okay, rule number 3. You're speaking with an equal or a peer. This one's even easier. Act as if. That is, if you really don't believe this in your heart. But you should believe this because it's true. Look, if you're offering something to your prospects that would make their lives or business better, which you should always be doing anyway, you're an asset to this prospect. They will be better off having done business with you than not. You're just 2 business people doing business together. You are peers, so act that way. Doesn't matter if you're talking to the hardware store owner that's up the street from where you live, with the VP of sales of a company doing $5 million a year, or the president of a Fortune 500 conglomerate. You're talking to a peer. Put that in your mind and act that way because it's true. Besides that, no one, especially powerful people, is going to take advice from or do what someone who is 2 levels below them asks them to do. But they will listen to peers. So be a peer. Bottom line, you're speaking with a peer. Have that be evident in your tone and address your prospect the way their peers would address them. Because you are one. And here's where what I say may deviate from what you've heard before, what you're doing now, or what others advise. You're a peer. So what does a peer do when they address a peer? They don't call each other Mr. Jones, Mr. Smith, or Mr. So-and-so. They call each other John, Bill, Dave. So you do that. Address your prospects by name. And no, it's not rude, incordial, or in bad taste. It's business. Peers that do business with each other call each other by their names. So do that. You know who calls Bill Jones, the president of XYZ Corporation, Mr. Jones? His subordinates. You're not one of his subordinates, you're a peer. So call him what a peer calls him, Bill. Anyway, enough on this. Always remember you're talking to a peer. All right, rule number 4. Buyers are liars. Blow off BS objections. We've covered this a bunch in the past few episodes of the Atlas Cast. But quickly, let me just say this. Most times, the first objection that you hear from a prospect is not the real objection. This goes for some objections you hear afterward too. So, most times, they are not the real objection or a real objection. The real reason why they won't buy or do what you want them to do. So, when you get a BS objection, you need to blow it off or completely ignore it, instead of actually responding to it, and in doing so, making it real for the prospect. Here's an example. I have no money. You have a week to pay for the trade. Believe me, you want to own the 100 shares. I'm going through a divorce. You have to understand something. We're talking about a company that's about to receive a government contract that will double their revenues. Trust me, you want to take the 100 shares. I have to talk to my wife. John, I've talked to my wife this morning. She said I could sell it to you. One wife's got to be enough, right? Listen to me on this one. Do the 100 shares. So you blow them off. If you respond to these phony objections and actually try to rebut them as if they were real, you'll only be solidifying the prospect's position that he can't buy or do what you want him to do, and you'll actually be making that objection a real one in their minds. And with that, you will lose. Here's how not to do it. I have no money. Can I tell you something? We're only talking about 100 shares of a $40 stock. You're telling me you don't have a lousy $4,000 you can use for this? I'm going through a divorce. Well, John, there's ways to invest in a divorce. Even if your wife takes half, you're still looking good when the stock goes to 50. I have to talk to my wife. John, we're only talking about a small trade. By all means, call your wife when we go bigger and better down the road. But right now, there's no reason to call her about a small investment of 100 shares. Okay, so some of those could be used or tweaked and might be used successfully. That is, if you're addressing a real objection and that objection is real. Still, sometimes it's still a good thing to try and blow off even a real objection. The fact is, your prospect will be better off having done business with you. Why let anything get in the way of that? Everything can potentially be turned into a bad reason not to buy and overcome. Okay, last thing we'll cover here is Rule 5. Cut off excuses. We'll cover the last 5 next time out and continue on how to handle objections in the episode after that. I promise. So Rule 5. Cut off excuses. You want to always be in control of the conversation. Sometimes prospects try to take back control of the conversation by rambling on and actually selling you on why they can't buy. And consequently, they're selling themselves even more on why they can't buy. You want to stop that dead in its tracks. And you want to cut off your prospect from rambling on and saying anything that isn't helpful to you in helping you facilitate a sale or an appointment. Here's an example. Let's say that you just asked for the order and the prospect gives you one of these. You know, I bought some Halliburton stock 10 years ago. It did okay, but I held on too long and wound up not making too much profit on it. Well, not as much as I should have anyway. So, I'm not really investing in the market right now. I'm thinking it's best to stash some cash away. Yeah, I know, the bank's only paying a little more than 1%, but it's safe, and the fact is, I really don't want to be unsafe right now with the heart condition I have. My stepbrother's wife's brother actually took a heart attack and passed away when the market dropped in 2007. I'd hate to put myself in that position. I really should start being more active. Dr. Phil says that if you walk a half mile a day, it can add 10 years to your life. Oh, what I wouldn't give for another 10 years. Oh, golly, If I go back 10 years, 50 years, I could have asked Sally to the big dance and it'd be all different now. Oh well, no use crying over spilt milk. Oh, that's it. I have to go to the grocery store and get some milk. It was nice talking to you. I have to run. Thanks. Click. You have to stop that stuff dead in its tracks. Anything that isn't useful and any information that doesn't get you closer to a sale needs to be stopped cold. Now I know, that was an exaggeration, but don't think conversations like that don't happen every day. They do, and they will, if you allow them. In that situation, the prospect actually gave some useful information off the bat. If you cut him off right after he said he didn't make as much profit as he would have liked, you then have more than enough to offer a compelling reason he should listen to you now. I bought some Halliburton stock 10 years ago. It did okay, but I held on too long and wound up not making too much of a profit. Look, John, you have to understand something. In this market, it's all about pricing and timing. Right now, the stock's at 40. In 60 days, it'll be at 50. When that happens, I'll advise all my clients, including you, to sell at a nice profit. Like I said, it's all about pricing and timing, and that's what I do best. Listen to me on this one. Right now is the time to buy. Definitely go with the 100 shares. Now, will that work? Maybe. Maybe not. But you've got to believe the guy is much more likely to buy after being cut off and hearing that than before, when he controlled the conversation, rambled on for what felt like 20 minutes, and then proceeded to hang up. So cut people off. Control the conversation. Only allow the prospect to give you information that's helpful to you in using to facilitate a sale. All right, that's the first 5 rules. We'll cover the next 5 later on. Let's wrap up this episode now. If you'd like to get updates on this show, the Atlas Cast for Building Your Business, as well as show notes, transcripts, and your 2 free gifts, my best-selling book, Build Your Business Without Breaking the Bank, and the audio program Going Up, how to generate more and better leads quickly and inexpensively, just go to www.theatlascast.com and subscribe. You'll get all these free of charge, my gift for being a loyal listener to this show. Last thing here, I'm holding an online summit that'll be coming up in the next few weeks. It's going to be me alongside some other highly knowledgeable, hugely successful sales, marketing, and entrepreneurial experts, and the summit will cover a vast array of the topics that will help you grow your business. Now, here's the good news and where you come in. First off, this summit is going to be free for you to attend if you're a subscriber to the show or if you've taken any of my courses. Second off, you will get to decide which topics we'll cover in the summit. I'll have more details for you in the next episode of the Atlas Cast. But in the meantime, if there's a topic you want covered in the summit, simply shoot me an email at archer@archeratlas.com and let me know. Like I said, I'll have more details about this for you shortly. All right, that's it for this episode of the Atlas Cast for Building Your Business with me, Sultan of the Sales Call, Archer Atlas. Like I said, next time out, we'll continue where we left off with the next and last 5 rules. I'm really looking forward to this. See you then.